Well, hey folks, it's your old pal King Waspinator here. Welcome back to Total Party Skills. Back at the beginning of this year for a couple months while I was still getting over having broken several of my ribs in a car wreck at the very end of 2020, I had a chance to experiment a little bit with running the Star Trek Adventures role-playing game by Modiphius. I know the fast version of Star Trek from back in the day has its fans. I had one of their books back at the time. And I myself personally have some issues with some of Modiphius's rule mechanics, but ignoring that, Star Trek Adventures is almost a masterpiece in and of itself at how well it manages to really kind of somehow capture that buoyant energy that Star Trek episodes had. And one of the things I experimented with while trying to run it, I was using my wife as a guinea pig, is the thing that's occurred to me is that, especially if you're using the extended task rule system that it provides, there's a way to create a Starfleet simulator out of that. And I think if you as a DM, GM, whatever you're calling yourself, could get yourself to break out of the mold of typical role-playing game adventure design, I think there's an opportunity to make something really potentially special out of how you run Star Trek that really makes the players feel like their characters are actually like in the universe for real and are actually like living, breathing things that are pushing this all forward. I mean, a common problem I find with a lot of branded role-playing games, stuff that are taken, like the Dune role-playing game, Robotech, any established IP that has a role-playing game spin-off, is that not always, but often, the people who write them, they know role-playing games, and so they try to hammer it into these old role-playing game formulas. And I do feel like, like the starter set adventure that comes with the Star Trek box set and whatnot, kind of does fit in that mold. Big, long, overarching plot narratives and all that kind of stuff. But like when you actually look at how the rules are designed, especially with the stuff like the increase of threats or the fact you can randomly generate complications, I think the key is to go back and think about how the old Star Trek episodes were, the original series and Next Generation, and to a lesser degree Voyager and Enterprise. A lot of these episodes, the mission that they were on is always like, we're going to go explore this cloud, and that's it. And the adventure itself of that episode has really nothing to do with the cloud. It has something to do with the ship or the planet they run into on the way to go investigate this space cloud. Similarly, what I would suggest is you focus your characters on having them be department heads on the starship you design, and you give them a focused, simple, science-y or diplomatic type mission that they're on their way to. Generally, like my recommendation, just from like what the actual speed travel values are and the volume of space that the Federation and Klingon Empire kind of encompasses, I'd say you want your cruising speed for interplanetary missions to be around warp 6 or 7. Otherwise, it's maybe a little bit too fast and you don't have time for any of what I'm about to propose. But for each department that on that ship that a player character is in charge of, you'll want to write out a simple, basic, weekly extended task that goes with running that department. If they're, medical officer is just the basic routine stuff of just keeping the crew healthy. Similarly with your ship's counselor. Engineer, bunch of little engineering tasks, just the day maintenance of just keeping the ship running. If someone's playing the first officer or something, like their stuff could be crew evaluation reports and a bunch of command kind of level stuff that focuses on their skills. They feel like they're accomplishing stuff. It also gives them an opportunity to build up a pool of momentum points by the time they get to their destination, in case you actually have a real adventure there. But I would say for the most part, like when you're for your basic most outline, keep it as simple and like non-conflict heavy as possible. You want to have a version where as the crew does everything right and everything goes smoothly, they get there, they can wrap up their mission super easy. The thing is to prefigure out a bunch of NPC characters, alien ships, and other spatial anomalies, other kind of stuff, and have them waiting in the wings to be triggered as players add to your threat pool so that you can purchase. If you want a faction about a villain don't make that the central focus of what the written adventure is. Have that be something that they caused to happen because they decided to give you some threat points because they wanted some momentum because they're trying to get over some sort of critical thing. Aside from like having a task list for each individual department, you could also have like a generic bridge crew tasks, and then players can kind of choose what they want to do from each week to week during their mission. They can either focus on, you know, working on their department, or they can, you know, all join together and be part of the bridge crew, or some mixing and matching. You can even have characters help another character with their weekly task list, you know, if they have compatible skills and can be of assistance. Generally, I found from running it that Modiphius' Star Trek, especially when you're able to, you know, use crew NPCs to assist in various tasks, it's incredibly easy for the characters to be successful. I didn't find that there's that much need for them to spend their momentum, so their momentum pool just kind of tanked off and stayed there. But like I said, you want to have like some preset triggered complications that are somewhat relevant to what that department is. You know, your engineering chief, they're doing their engineering task list, but they flub on part of it, and then suddenly they've triggered a complication. Well, that complication could be something that would be the basis of an episode of Star Trek in and of itself. You know, where they have some sort of issue, you know, the ship's computers are malfunctioning, the holodeck is taking over, you know, they're caught in some sort of, you know, spatial anomaly where the ship can't move until they figure out exactly how to jimmy the warp field just the right way to get out. Stuff like that. You know, the bridge crew kind of stuff, you know, helmsman department, you know, their flubs could like lead them into time travel scenarios or running into alien craft. They're shadowing them and they got to figure out who they are. You know, diplomatic crisis can arise if your first officer character is messing up their extended weekly task. The thing that I still found needed a little tweaking on what I was doing is finding the exact levels of how many successes need to be accumulated for a week's worth of work, and also where to put the breakthrough point so that they go ahead and jump ahead a little bit. That's still, I hadn't quite got that quite where I wanted it, but it was close, and I could feel that, you know, with a little bit more tweaking. Unfortunately, because we're in the lockdown, if you don't have great internet and don't like online gaming, you're kind of stuck with the limited options you have in terms of whether or not you can have players at all. But I feel like, you know, that I think that's how to really run this game. Is like I said, keep the mission statement simple. We're gonna go scan some planets over in this quadrant. The end. There's nothing necessarily there. You have some stuff that could be there, and then you allow the player's own fuck-ups to have those things engaged. And, you know, you can also kind of prioritize to yourself. I mean, just because you've built up one threat point doesn't mean you have to immediately spend it on one of your level 1 threats. You can let that build up. So if you want to actually have the big bad NPC villain that you're like, you know, this lost starship captain trapped on this planet who's gone insane, just like in Star Trek Beyond, what, you know, whatever the idea is, allow them to be the ones that are kind of responsible for them having to face that. Otherwise, if you were to still write an adventure that has a bunch of NPCs and things that they're going to run into, then what exactly are you spending the threat points on? Are you just making stuff that was already written to be a challenge even more impossibly hard? Are you even further complicating yourself by adding even more encounters and villains that makes it take even longer to get to the point of what you have prepared? I feel that the key is to let the rules generate the adventure, because they kind of seem like they're built to be that way. And so, like I said, just ignore your classic models of, you know, like, I've pre-designed what's in this tomb and I know what the monster is at the end. You have a couple potential candidates and see what the characters can sell. And the fact that, you know, like, maybe they get to the cloud and they scan it, nothing exciting happens. Well, in a way, that's kind of their reward for having, like, done their job and their duty right and not added a bunch of threat to themselves. Maybe that might consider them to push themselves a little bit more so they could potentially actually fuck up on purpose just so that they might have some more excitement to do. I mean, it's not a perfect system. Like I said, I only tweaked with it for like a couple of months, but like I said, I feel that in there somewhere is the key to, like, really simulating a proper Star Trek adventure. So anyway, I guess thanks for listening. Tell me in the comments below what terrible ideas all this is. you know, Star Trek should just be nothing but just punching Romulans, just giant crowds of Romulans. You're just hacking and slashing your way through, and all that kind of stuff. Basically modern Star Trek. Anyway, have a good one. Stay waspinated, and I'll talk to you later.